My class reunion is on in Cork City this weekend, and I'm on my way to Belfast. Why is that? Well, tune in later to find out.
But I think it's quite humorous. It's got that some of that black humour that I grew up with.
This weekend is my class reunion, and a big weekend that I've been looking forward to now for a long time. I'd say it's been planned for about a year, maybe even 2 years, I think, this one. So an official reunion was planned by University College Cork, UCC, which is where I went to. So I grew up in Cork. I went to college there, did engineering. For people who are listening to this from abroad, Cork is the third biggest city in Ireland, down the south. And yeah, it's kind of a routine thing that class reunions are planned by the college, particular milestones. So I was really looking forward to this one, and it was planned for Friday night of the weekend. And an interesting thing happened is that my closest friends who were in the class, who I was really looking forward to seeing, organised an alternative class reunion for as far away as humanly possible from Cork, which if you look on a map is Belfast. So they chose to go to Belfast instead for the weekend, which left me with a dilemma as to which one I would go to, but also left me thinking about what is it about class reunions that people find intimidating. And I suppose, let's face it, everybody finds them intimidating. There's kind of it's a mixture of really positive emotions, but then for some people maybe it's quite intimidating and it's not a pleasant experience, presumably. I'll pick up fuel. Okay. So yeah, so the official reunion, so that left me with a dilemma. Now happily, typical me, and it kind of it gave me an insight into my own personality, in that I've so much fear of missing out that I decided to go to both. So my plan was to go take a day off, go down to Cork on the Friday, go to that official reunion, and then drive all the way from Cork all the way to Belfast the following day, and pick up the second night of the alternative breakaway class reunion on the Saturday night. Then I find, so this is it. There was kind of an alternative breakaway class reunion, and I was kind of committed to both, and which I find in a lot of cases when there's breakaways, I find I've no interest in choosing a side, so I just kind of usually choose both. And because I think I would enjoy both anyway. But then we find, when it comes down to the wire, we get an email in the last minute. This is after 2 years of planning. UCC sent an email round to the few people who did commit to coming, that due to low numbers, we are cancelling the class reunion. And that gave me an even further insight into, now it wouldn't have been just our class. I'd say our class would have been about 70 people. It would have been probably civil engineering class as well, which would have been another 70, and it may even have been other classes, although maybe not. But so it would have been either out of a total pool of 70 or maybe 100, let's say 150. And it seems they got very low numbers, which again made me think about what it is about class reunions that make people intimidated. And I kind of started asking myself, what is it that gets me intimidated about them a little bit? Even though I don't really feel happily, I look on it as a very potentially pleasant encounter. But then there is the old cliche about class reunions, that it is a competitive thing where people feel inadequate, a sense of inadequacy about maybe how successful they are, or how well or otherwise they've done in life. And I think that can be true, but only if you choose it to be that way. And now, everybody is naturally competitive, and let's face it, it's just a normal part of life. It's competitive instinct, but it depends on what you mean by success. And I've kind of redefined what I think success is over the years. Certainly when I left college, I was very ambitious, very driven, really competitive, and my first 5 to 8 years at work, I was extremely competitive, and it was successful, and it worked, and I suppose it's because I was young, I was free, there was very little else. When I got married, and then when my child came along, everything changed. All of the energy that I did feel, I suppose I had all this surplus energy. I was young, I did have that energy, not that I don't have it now really, but I was exploding with it in my 20s, and it had to go somewhere, and it went into work and success, and trips abroad when I did consultancy in Ghana and Libya, and they were all fantastic. When my child came along, all that changed, and my focus was on being a parent. In fact, I went down to a 4-day week and dedicated 1 day of every week to making sure that I looked after my child, and I have no regrets, certainly. And I knew that at the time, if I didn't do that, I would have regrets. And going down to that 4-day week did affect my career, definitely. It stood in the way a lot of promotion prospects and a lot of jobs where people took a very prejudiced view of it. And interestingly, I mean, that was 10 years ago I made that decision. And even though it's a 20% salary cut, people kind of feel that it's frowned upon, especially for a man, And I remember I used to, at the time, and I mean, my boss at the time was a nice guy. I'm not saying this to criticize him, but he used to, we'd be coming up to 6 o'clock, and I would have to collect my daughter from the creche at 6. And sometimes he'd hold meetings late, and it would be 10 to 6, and I'd be looking at the clock, sweating. And he would say, "Oh, we better finish up because Mommy Bear has to run to make the creche." And I just kind of took it in good humour. It's the only way you can, really. But I'm sure if it was slightly different circumstances, and if I was a mother, he'd probably have been raked over the coals over it. But look, it doesn't matter. So that's a whole separate issue, because now 10 years later, or whatever, how many years later it is, there's a lot of talk about the 4-day week, and I'm going to do a whole separate video about that, about the 4-day week. I mean, I decided on doing a 4-day week 10 years ago. I'm a pioneer in that regard. I'm kind of proud of it, and I would be a great advocate of it, because I think a lot of us are just earning too much money, and we don't have enough time to live our lives with it, and we need a far better balance. In fact, I think the 4-day week should be the minimum of what we're aiming for, and we should be looking at half time and things like that. I mean, at the time I considered an interesting scheme whereby I was going to approach somebody else as it was a mother, and there was a management job, and I knew there was no way they were going to accept a 4-day week person. We're going to, there was you have to be around 5 days a week. So I had an interesting little idea, and I was going to approach a mother at the time and agree to jointly apply for the management job on the basis of half time each. So we would both do 2.5 days, and the other person would then step in and do the other 2.5 days. So there'd be full coverage. And I'd never heard of it done before, but I thought it might be an interesting idea. She wasn't in favour of it, so it never went ahead. But I still even think that's an option. So I would be willing to go down from 4 to 2.5 days without any difficulty. Now in that case, it would be cushioned by the fact that it would be a management job and it would be higher salary. But I think it makes sense. I think a lot of us should be working less, and certainly if we were working 1 day less a week, unemployment could be absorbed. It could be reduced almost nil. You could have, I think, in our society, there's a lot of people, too many people are working too much time, which leaves some people with no jobs at all. And I think neither is ideal. I think a happy medium for everybody, where everybody is working a reasonable amount, you get a certain amount of buzz from that and a sense of purpose and all that. But then beyond that, that sense of purpose is beaten out of you because you don't have time to actually live your life. Anyway, so interesting segue there. But So what is success? So success is a very cheesy word, and in the modern era it can mean, certainly in professional environment, people get obsessed with where you are on the slippery, greasy pole on the ladder up that corporate ladder to success and all that kind of stuff, and how much you earn and all of that materialistic stuff, which really I've very little interest in. But I remember talking to somebody about success at the time, earlier in my career, and the guy said success is big. I think success is being able to tuck my kids into bed at night. And I thought, that resonates with me. And when my own daughter came along, I decided that I'm definitely going to be able to do that. I'm going to judge myself by the ability to be able to do that, be there for my kids. Because I hear a lot of parents, and actually increasingly more now, young parents going, oh, I have to work hard because I've now got a kid. And you know, I mean, I don't want to judge anybody. Being a parent is a difficult thing, and all the decisions, and the worst thing to do is judge parents. But really, so their strategy is to spend less time with their kids, to be off doing stuff which may or may not make them successful too much, and then they have less time with their kids. And really, I think the only thing a child needs is for you to spend time with them. It doesn't need a promise of wealth in the future, or your dad will be this rich, powerful person, or your mother will be successful, some rubbish like that. They need you to just be there. And there's this awful concept as well that's come into the lexicon of quality time. But really, quality time is a rubbish term for parenting, because for parenting, the most important time to be there is the crappy time. The time when your kid is going through really horrible experiences, or maybe experiences that usually they don't even know what the hell is going on in their head. They don't have the ability to express it. They're just dissatisfied. They're going through bumps and in the road and stuff, and you're just there with them. And it's not about to explain anything to them, but they just want you to be there, and they can do a bit of molding and kick a ball or something, and you're there, and that gives them a certain sense of security. And a kid couldn't care less about how much money you have or how much money you have to give them. It gives them, from my experience, that is no portion of parenting at all. And in fact, it just reminds me of when my daughter was turned 10 years of age, and it was kind of the big 1-0, and I thought, sure, look, she was very non-materialistic all the way going up, and really into the wholesome stuff. And I thought, look, for the big 1-0, we'll splash out. So I said, look, I'll get you something really, reasonably big for your 10th birthday. What would you like? And she thought for a while, and she said, I'd like a football. So I went down to the shop and I bought a football for, I think, €5, maybe €10. And it was the best present ever that she got. Not only the best present for her, but for me as well, because we went up to the local park and kicked that ball for hours on end. And we spent just great time together. And I loved it. It was just some of the nicest experiences of parenting growing up. And I loved just kicking the ball as high up in the air as possible. And she was so tiny the other end of the pitch, so the ball would just come bouncing down, and she'd try and jump up to catch it and maybe go over her head, and she'd be just in hysterics, laughter, trying to get it. And it was some of the nicest times we had together. And that was from a €5 football. And it's kind of a cheesy thing, but money does not buy happiness. The simplest things are where you get the most fun and the most enjoyment and bonding. And so that's success. And this class reunion thing is really leading me down to a lot of different thoughts and pathways, which is a nice thing. I'm on the M50 here now, out of Dublin, on my way to Belfast. Yeah, so the class reunion, that obviously fell apart due to the fact that there was no interest, or could it be that people, I was wondering, were people intimidated by it? Do people, and really when I talk to people, a lot of people would have had negative opinions, a negative take on the whole concept of a class reunion, which surprised me because I was quite enthusiastic about it. And maybe it's because of that reason, because I've kind of stepped out of the whole class, of the whole materialistic thing. Well, not stepped out of it. I still value success in terms of the game. I mean, I definitely understand the game, and I think that's important. The game of competing, getting financial reward for that, being useful, hopefully, and getting rewarded and acknowledged for that, and then you get a certain amount of wealth with it. I understand that, and I play that game. I'm not living in a mud hut as a hippie who's opted out of the old system, definitely, and I would see no point in that. But you know, there would be people who I went to college with who have reached astronomical success. I mean, one guy who I did my masters with is now has his own private jet and lives in Silicon Valley in California, and flies his jet around the place, around the States. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Absolutely lovely guy, really good friend. And there are people who've done even better, and I'm really happy for them. Compared to them, my pure financial success would be limited, let's say. But I consider myself very grateful for what I have. Pink limo there, just passing. Yeah, so the class reunion, the normal class, and I think the class that we had, it was electrical engineering and UCC. I think we were lucky to have a real bunch of decent people. Really liked it. Now, back in those days, engineering was very male dominated. It still is. Engineering is probably the one profession that is still male dominated of all of the professions. I can't think of any other one. Like medicine used to be male dominated. Now medicine is female dominated. Nearly 60% women. Law is probably 60% women. Teaching is 90% women. Can't think of any other ones, but nearly every other profession has either gender balance or where women are in the majority, and I think engineering is the very last bastion. We had 70 people in the class and we had 7 girls, so it was 10% at the time. And but I think engineering seemed to attract sound, decent people. There tended to be a bit of an arrogance associated with medicine, and I didn't find that in engineering. I didn't think it attracted those kind of people. More the quieter type. I mean, there were incredibly intelligent guys. I think one of the guys we had in our class got the best results in Ireland, and he came first in physics and chemistry and maths or something. Phenomenal kind of intelligent brain. Wouldn't probably have done the most successful. Interestingly, now looking back, it didn't translate to professional field. But overall, I think the crack that we had was incredible. Really great crack, and that's actually one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this reunion. And I would have looked forward to the official one as well, because I don't think there was any. I mean, vast majority of the people were really sound. The interesting thing about this breakaway class reunion is that it's probably my closest friends of all that are going here. So this, I wouldn't class, there would be while there might be some trepidation about going to the official class reunion where you're meeting people and who I wouldn't really have been that close to. This one is so comfortable. It's my closest, dearest friends who are lifelong friends now since college, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them. And it's Belfast, which I haven't seen in a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that too. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a positive thing that this class reunion forces you to, or any class reunion, a milestone like that, forces you to just reevaluate where you are. And there's nothing necessarily negative about that. I would say it's a positive thing where you just sit back and say, I've reached this milestone, and maybe is there things I could change? Am I happy with the path that I'm taking? And I would say I am happy with the path that I'm taking so far, and things are going well. But it does make you think, and I mean, there are memories. Interestingly, I hadn't really thought that much of the memories from college, most of which are quite positive. Now, the college memories are positive. The personal memories that I have from college are pretty horrific. Sadly, it was probably the roughest time in my life because both my parents died while I was in college, and that was just a nightmare, that whole experience. And it's kind of sad when I think back on it now, because it should have been the best, and it definitely could have been the best years of my life. And it was, in a way. I was watching the best years of my life happen around me, and within me I was cracking. Like, that's no exaggeration. I was falling apart. My mother got sick of cancer midway through and then died, and basically my mother was barely buried when my father got cancer then, and it was just, that was even tougher because my father was a unique character with his own particular characteristics, which, and I think when people, and something I have an insight into now, when a parent dies, and when I go along to the funeral now, I know from my own experience, people think the person's going through grief because they're missing the parent and stuff, but it's much more than that. Well, certainly from my point of view, it was they kind of left a car crash behind where there were so many questions unanswered and so much crap for me to work out for myself, and trauma and all this kind of stuff. And so the death of a parent can be a very complex thing, and it's something that I know now when I go to other funerals of people, that there's a potential that it's not just as simple as grief and missing a person, that you're trying to figure out a lot of stuff that maybe hasn't been resolved and then never can be resolved, you know, when your parents die and move on. Now, presumably some people have very happy childhoods and experiences where they don't have to resolve anything, and God bless them. So, so that was horrific and was traumatic, and years afterwards, I mean, while finishing up college, it was just, I was trying to put the pieces of me back together, and went to counselling and all this kind of stuff, and to try and piece myself back together. But I feel in a good place anyway today, and that's all that matters. I'm not thinking back that much. I feel good today, certainly, and that's all that matters. This morning, right here in this car, I am going to Belfast, and I feel excited, and I'm really looking forward to a night with these lads. It just feels great because they are some of the nicest people that I've ever met, and it's true that the people you meet in college are friends for life, people that will stay with you forever. I mean, the fun and the laughter, just the pure laughing that we do. I'm laughing already because these are the funniest guys that I've ever met, and I just love them. So I'm looking forward to that, just spending a whole day, maybe a day and a half, day and a bit, just laughing, you know. So that's the class reunion. it's getting me thinking about, well, I mean, I do a lot of thinking, as you know. If you've watched some of the other videos, I think a lot, maybe too much. In fact, that is partly my problem. Interestingly, in college, I kind of bring it back to, in college as an engineer, you're taught to be a problem solver and all this kind of stuff. And the message I got from college, but in general, in everything in society, is the more you think out problems, the easier it gets and you'll solve them. And I think that was partly my problem when I was all messed up as a teenager and later on, is that I thought, okay, you know, I'll analyse these problems, I'll figure them out and everything will be fine. And of course the opposite happened. I kept analysing until I was my head was a washing machine of remuneration. What is it? No, what is that word? Remunerating? What's that when you think over and over and it's like a cow munching on grass? What the hell is that? Rumination. Yeah, that's it. God, thank God I got that. Yeah, so, and I realised, and it's only years later I've realised that the less I think about personal problems, the better. And that's where meditation comes in. Even though I can't meditate really, I mean, in fact, that's not the solution. What am I thinking? I mean, I've tried meditation, but my mind is too bloody active, overactive. So it's about switching off your mind, either by swimming or Wim Hof breathing. I find is the form of meditation that works for me, because it's very active, and it's a very brutal stress on the body that kind of forces my head into submission, if you like. Yeah, so class reunion, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be great crack. And it is a pity that the official reunion was cancelled. And I think actually it sends out the wrong signal when that happens. I always find it regrettable when organisers do that. Like, you organise something and a certain amount of people commit. Let's say it's 10% of people commit. And then the 90% of people are kind of staying on the sidelines, and they're thinking, they're just hovering around, seeing which way it'll go. And maybe, quite often, you know, not with this event, but maybe other ones. And then they see if it's a success, yeah, we'll pile in then, or we'll go to the next one. So 10% of the people are the good people who are putting themselves forward and they're committing to an event or whatever. And maybe putting up a bit of money or whatever, or a bit of just energy, or blocking off their time. Not that we're prima donnas who are, you know, whose time is precious, but everybody's time is precious, especially when you have children. And then, so what? If you cancel that event then because of low numbers, sometimes effectively what you're doing is you're punishing the people who have committed. So the people who have blocked off their time, they've given the goodwill of committing to it, you're kind of punishing them by saying, right, well, we're not going ahead. And you're kind of rewarding the people who decide, oh, okay, I'm going to stay on the fence hoping this thing will fall apart, or, you know, so that they won't have any FOMO if it does go ahead. So I think that's kind of regrettable. It sends out the wrong signal then. So that if there's a future reunion, the people who committed the first time are less inclined to commit, and because they've been not punished is a strong word, but they've been sent the wrong signal that their commitment isn't matched by commitment on the other side. So cancelling events like that due to low numbers is like saying to the people who didn't commit, yeah, you were right all along, and the people who did commit, you're wrong, and we're going to send out the signal that you are not going to be rewarded for your commitment. That might sound like a deep way of reacting to that, but I think it's an undercurrent, and I think it's true in a lot of these events, you know. I think you're better off if you get 3 or 4 people, you know, committing, better off just saying to those people, fair play to you, we're going to go ahead and we're going to reward you. And, you know, especially if you're organising events for the future, it says we do, you know, we're serious. People who do commit, we're gonna reward you and go along with that. That's my class reunion. So I'm going to check in later. I'm on my way. I'm going to check in later and just review how it's going. I think it's going to be one of the best nights I've had in a long time. So it's long to fall.